Woke is dead. That is the mantra that we've heard on a repeat since President Donald Trump was elected to his second term as president. However, as we see nearly every single day, that is just not true whatsoever. The latest example of this is popular streamer Asmongold coming out defending gay marriage and saying there's nothing wrong with transgenderism. Roll this up over at phantompulse.com. You can find the link in the description below. First off, let's get into his defense of gay marriage, which he made in a recent stream earlier this week. This is what he said. He says, I think that gay people should be able to get married. I don't think that churches should have to officiate gay marriages. So like basically, if you're a mosque, a synagogue, a church, a monastery or anything like that, churches should in no way, shape, or form be given any sort of obligation to officiate or recognize gay marriage. But what does need to be acknowledged is the state, because marriage is a legal concept between two people. And fundamentally, I don't really see there being a problem. It's for tax reasons, right? Now, if you wanted to do something where, because civil unions, you could say civil unions do not have the same rules as a marriage. If you wanted to make civil unions for all intents and purposes, and in every single circumstance with literally zero exceptions, they are just simply the gay version of marriage, I would be fine with that. But right now, as it stands, they're not. They're not the same, especially with certain types of end of rights, end of life rights, and end of life privileges. Civil unions do not fully cover that in a way that marriage does, and it's also true in certain types of inheritances, etc. It should just be recognized by the government. So he's clearly advocating for gay marriage. Like, he is literally saying, I think that gay people should be able to get married. First off, marriage is not a legal concept between two people, so he doesn't even know what marriage is, and he's clearly trying to redefine something that has existed for time immemorial. Rather, marriage is a covenant by which a man and a woman establish between themselves a partnership of the whole of life, is by its nature ordered toward the good of the spouses and the procreation and education of offspring. This covenant between baptized persons has been raised by Christ the Lord to the dignity of a sacrament. So clearly, there is no such thing as the so-called gay marriage, because marriage requires a man and a woman. It also obviously requires the procreation and education of offspring. As Catholic apologist Jimmy Akin noted back in 2013, to claim that a man can marry another man or a woman another woman is just playing games with words, as would be claiming that a man can marry an animal or a vegetable or an inanimate object. And that is the lie that Asmongold has clearly bought into and is now peddling. Furthermore, in 2004, Jimmy Akin pointed out that given the fact that marriage is a reality of human nature, we cannot change it. We don't have the ability to alter human nature. Nevertheless, that appears to be what Asmongold is attempting to do. He's attempting to alter human nature by advocating for gay marriage. He is literally advocating for wokeness. And for anyone who doesn't know what wokeness is, I think Dr. Edward Fieser, or people who are going to say, define wokeness in the comments. I'm sure Dr. Edward Fieser has a really good definition of it. He says wokeness is a paranoid, delusional, hyper-egalitarian mindset that tends to see oppression and injustice where they do not exist, or greatly to exaggerate them where they do exist. And he actually kind of goes on and says here, by characterizing wokeness as paranoid and delusional, I'm not fleeing in terms of abuse, but describing the real psychological features of the woke attitude. In their book, The Coddling of the American Mind, which I say a bit about in my own book, Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt note that the frame of mind encouraged by woke ideas, critical race theory, gender theory, social justice warrior rhetoric, and the like is very similar to a mindset that cognitive behavioral therapy identifies as a major cause of psychological disorders. And if you're literally trying to change something that is part of nature, you are clearly being delusional. And that is exactly what Asmongold is buying into right now. He is living in a delusion, thinking that he can redefine what marriage is. Given Asmongold's comments, he's bought into the lie that marriage can be changed when it cannot. Akin predicted this in 2004, describing what Asmongold is now advocating for as a legal fiction. Akin said this: that is to say, we could create laws requiring those in society to treat those in homosexual unions as if they were married. People could be required to refer to homosexual unions as marriages, to refer to people in such unions as spouses, to alter forms so that people in such unions can present themselves as such, and to give them the status of married people regarding adoption, housing, taxes, insurance, divorce, and inheritance. But while the law could be rewritten to coerce society into treating people in homosexual unions as if they were married, this would not give them the reality reality of marriage, it would not change the nature of their union to correspond to what marriage actually is. Second, providing a state endorsement as well as benefits and subsidies, to these disordered and sinful relationships would encourage more of such activity and lead others down the path of destruction. It also brings about other forms of destruction, such as depriving children of their right to both a mother and a father, and the proliferation of purchasing your fellow man through surrogacy. We have seen all of these things kind of play out since the Supreme Court had their Obergefell ruling back in 2015. And there's obviously been high-profile abuse cases where these individuals are literally purchasing other people and then abusing them. It's just sick. It's just absolutely sick. Additionally, there are a plethora of examples of the state persecuting those who are opposed to this degeneracy, including florists, bakers, photographers, and even town clerks. There are obviously a number of examples of those, not to mention the resurgence in diseases such as syphilis and increases in suicide and mental health problems with the people that engage in these disordered lifestyles. And so not only did he defend gay marriage, but then he also said that trans is not a big problem. He said it's not a big problem. Let's listen to what he had to say right here.
The LGBT is mostly fine. You're right. Trans is the main issue that people have a problem with. That is the main issue. It's not gay, it's certainly not bi, and it's absolutely not lesbians. It's trans. That's where all of the hostility, all of the negativity comes from. Yes, and trans should not be involved with LGBT. There should not be an LGBT. LGBT, it should just be LGB. Trans is how you see yourself. Bisexual, being gay, being a lesbian is how you see other people. Being trans is not a sexuality. All three of the other ones are sexualities. It's that simple. Yeah, trans is a big problem. Well, I don't know about being a big problem. I don't think it's a big problem. What I'm saying is, like, the trans issues they're much more divisive, and they're much more, like, people have, like, much stronger feelings on the trans issues than they do about gay issues or something like that. Obviously, there's some people that don't like any of it, but in a general sense, I think that's what's going on. Are we really backtracking in history? Yeah, clearly that's what's happening.
So there you go. You can hear him say he's reading a comment where someone says trans is a big problem, and he rejects that, saying, I don't know about it being a big problem. I don't think it's a big problem. I mean, this guy thinks that people thinking that they can change their sex is not a big problem. He's clearly living in a delusion. He is advocating for woke ideology at this point. I think it's safe to say that we can now describe Asmongold as woke because he's literally advocating wokeness. As far as this idea that he posits at the beginning of that video, where he claims that the T needs to be separated from LGB, this is literally a narrative that Dr. Edward Fieser predicted back in January. He said this: the LGB without the T shtick is going to become standard in the new conservatism evolving before our eyes. It's a delusion. The T is a consequence of the same premises that led to the LGB. They stand or fall together. And then he has an extraordinarily lengthy essay where he goes over all of this and actually addresses a number of LGB people who are trying to separate the T from them, and shows how they can't do it and how they are indeed connected because they all kind of stem from the same root. I'm not going to get into all of this right now, but if you want to, I will include the link to this in the description below. And I've obviously cited this essay a number of times in my articles over on Fandom Pulse, but this is just the world we live in now. People that claim to be opposed to wokeness in video games are literally advocating for it in public policy. So I think it's safe to say that it was all a ruse. It was all fake. These people have no principles, and unclear as to why they decided to try to be anti-woke. Maybe they wanted to ride some kind of wave. But now that everyone has declared that woke is dead, we're seeing numerous people come out and indicate that they are totally fine with woke ideology. And I would not be surprised if we start seeing Asmongold advocating for this stuff in video games, which he has clearly said in the past that he hasn't been. So it's just really sad that this is the world that we live in, that these people claim something for, I don't know, 6 months, a year or so, get really big and popular for opposing it, and then immediately try to shift the narrative to get people to buy into this stuff. And that's why we have to be extraordinarily vigilant. That's why we have to keep fighting this stuff. And we have to be really careful about who we listen to, who we trust. And we really have to ground ourselves in Jesus Christ. And he shows us what is the truth, rather than putting kind of faith and trust in individuals like Asmongold, in these influencers. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.